most critical and important welfare system that people can get by the government. But if these organizations, which is religion hospitals, cannot provide those proper treatment upon because of these religious values, we believe that this is against these against those important values. Before I move on to my argument, I would like to talk about the status quo and the problem and the definition. Those religious hospitals, which is based on their beliefs, and these hospitals does not provide every treatment because of their belief. We believe that this is the main problem, and these religious people, especially those religious people who normally choose go to those religious institutes because of their belief, cannot be provided by because of their belief, and we believe that this is against their individuals' general predictability. Yes.
Isn't your problem solved if the patients choose to go to another hospital that's not religious?
We believe that these individuals, people, normally trust their organizations which provides the same religious value. So we believe that these religion hospital should be fixed in the first place, other than pursuing those religious people to choose to go another institute. And in the current status quo, there are a lot of religious hospitals, and we believe that this because the majority of institutes is based on the religion, we believe that this should be fixed in the first place. Now I'd like to move on to my first argument, which is the role of the hospital. We believe that this hospital is based on their role, which is to cure every individuals and provide the medical care for proper problems. If individuals suffer from any medical problems, then these hospitals should be considered the best option and the best solution for their patient. And if it's not done because of these based on their religious value, we believe that this is against the role of the hospital, which the doctor should provide the appropriate solution for each patient. If this is not done in the society, then these individuals cannot get every opportunity of being cured fully or cured in the
Yes. Isn't it wrong to say that the hospital should allow these religious groups who have already broke their religious beliefs in the first place just because they want to get cured by their religious hospitals?
We believe if it's in the urgent situation where these patients may got raped by somebody or doesn't have the proper ways of living because of their age or their economical statement, we believe that this abortion is the best solution for them, and this hospital, all the hospitals should respect their solution, their choice, and allow that to happen in the institute. And secondly, we like to move on to these individuals' equal right of getting the equal treatment. Citizens deserve to have an equal treatment by the institute, and believe that this should be forced by the government so that these every individuals can get the fair treatment. Because if these individuals have the religious value, doesn't mean that they should be discriminated by this hospital. And if these hospitals does not provide their aversion treatment because of their religion value, then we believe that these individual, like every citizen, does not get the could not receive the equal treatment which can be provided by the government. Mr. Speaker, our stance is clear that hospitals should run on the proper function regardless of religion, and we believe that this should be forced by the government to run the hospital. Thank you.
꽁.
원래 인바이스 빨리 올라가. 죄송해요.
너무
말해.
꽁. 날개만트 좀 찢어줘.
I want to first explain about the religious hospital and how it's different from regular hospital. First, there are when you say religious hospitals, it usually means the hospital based on the religious belief or their foundation, or they started the hospital with some kind of religious ideas, and the government mentioned that what if a woman that wants abortion, but she's Christian, so she wants to go to the Christian hospital, but Christian hospitals, they don't provide the abortion service. So, well, how should we do? What should we do? What should we do? There are other hospitals that provide this service. She can just always go to different hospitals to get awarded abortion. Religious hospitals, by government intervention and making the abortion forced on religious hospitals, that's making it indifferent from the regular hospitals, and religious hospitals, they because they're religious based, that so sorry so according to the establishment clause, the religious the establishment clause states that there should be separation between the church and the state. Religious-based hospitals have this religious belief, so government shouldn't be intervening their belief or and by government forcing them to not sorry, organized idea. Okay, so by forcing the abortion on religious hospitals, they're preventing the hospitals from preaching their religious values and exercising them, such as not providing the abortion care, abortion. And by forcing the abortion on religious hospitals, there are several groups that can be very offended, such as like doctors who work there. They chose to work there because of their religious values, most likely. So they should be given the choices to whether they want to remove the child or kill the child from the mom, or and it's violating the doctor's rights to be violating their religious or their rights, freedom of choice. And another group would be the religious groups, such as the interest groups that supports the religious hospital for certain reasons, like the interest group was interested. The group was interested in this religious hospital for not providing the abortion. And if they force the abortion on religious hospitals, that's the hospital might lose those supporters. By forcing the abortion on religious hospitals, this can take away the powers from the religious hospitals, as that's like limiting their church activities, like religious activities. Yes, limiting their expression of their religion. Forcing the abortion will make the religious hospital not any different from the regular hospitals. So the government should not force the religious hospitals to provide abortion.
Thank you for the speech. Now I'd like to call for Lala.
야야 언니.
스피치 해봤어?
네.
다른 세션에서? 처음 한 거지?
네.
내가 할게. 내가 켜줄게.
처음 스피치로는 아주 잘했어요.
LGT가 꼭 그렇게 해?
빅센트가 아니에요.
Maybe Jesus or curing people by touching their legs or making wine out of water, but the hospital are not doing that. Cannot do that because they're just believing because. Hospitals cannot cure people like that, just what Jesus did, because they believe in Jesus. So we believe that the role of the hospital is important because they're actually their role is giving out people a treatment, a treatment for them to be cured and for them to have a perfect happy after life. But then if they refuse to give those kind of treatment to the people, it means they're refusing their right to do their obligation to do, and it means that they have no right to have a hospital. They have no right to make a hospital. So we believe, regardless of their religions or what belief they have, the hospital have to provide a certain treatment that is requested or forced by the government. Forced by the government. So we believe the status quo in the status quo, the religious hospitals are not really giving a treatment that should be provided to the people because they're against because it is against their belief, even though it is a necessary stuff, even such as abortion. And so our stand is that regardless of belief, those kind of religious hospitals have to give those kind of treatment if it is necessary.
On that.
Yes.
If a hospital can choose to not provide brain surgery because that's not their area that they want to focus on, what is to prevent hospitals to say we don't want to practice the area of abortion?
Okay. If the hospital doesn't have a certain treatment and if they don't have any surgical knowledge about it, of course that might be a best way them not to have force those treatment. However, abortion is something that is occurring, and I believe every hospital is actually doing it, and there's no reason for them to say no to it because we believe abortion isn't that hard thing, and even illegally it is happening around the world. So I believe it is not hard to find even a common single hospital not doing it. So if they are refusing it, which means they're just hiding it and not try to refuse it because just by lying. So I believe that's not the matter in this debate. Okay, moving on. So moving on to my rebuttals and arguments I found from this debate. First, they told me the little opposition came up to the podium and she said, the RPOI that why do we not go to another hospital? But as we have different characteristics, people have different characteristics, and there's certain hospital only treat certain stuff and stuff. So I believe Christians, since we have so many religions and believe, if Christians would go to Christian hospital because they would feel better because Christians would understand what Christians can do and can do and cannot do. So
that's the reason why they can choose hospital and then go. So if those kind of hospital doesn't provide that necessary treatment, how can these religious people go to another hospital which they don't feel comfortable at all? So we believe that even though they have belief such belief, they have to do this obligation of a doctor that they have to be in the hospital. And secondly, they say that government should not intervene the belief of the hospital, but we are saying that we're not trying to intervene the belief of the hospital. We're not telling them to not believe this Christianity or whatever it is. We're telling them as allowed abortion because it is a necessary treatment that is already legalized by the government itself, and the hospital have to accept it because it is legalized in the country itself. So there's no reason for them to say no to it because we're not trying to intervene their beliefs at all. So we believe if
Ma'am,
no, thank you. If they think that we are trying to violating their rights, then we believe that if vice versa, we believe the hospital itself is actually violating their obligation to treat patients by not doing those kind of necessary treatment. Yes, and moving on. Okay. Thank you. I have no time. So, and she told me that doctors doesn't have right. Doctors also have important rights. But we believe that we want to ask the questions that is their belief more important over to their obligation to treat patients? We don't think so. They can go to pray to their God or something like that in their church and stuff. Doesn't mean that they have to put that in somebody's life and try not to treat them because of their belief. Because treatment and belief is totally different thing because they cannot just treat people.
exactly, ma'am.
That's right. Sit down. And yes. Okay. So moving on to the argument that we found. So I have 1 minute. So why especially religious hospitals should be forced? So as I told it, as I keep said in my rebuttals, that people all have these differences and we all have these different ideas and different knowledge and different identities. And people who want to go to religious hospitals because they feel like they're more comfortable and because they know what and because they are at same belief. So we cannot force them. Those kind of hospitals cannot force them to go to another hospital because they don't have those kind of treatment. Because it's not illegal in the country. It is already legalized. Abortion is already legalized in the country. So there's no reason for the hospital to refuse it. So we believe that hospital should do the treatment for those people who actually want to have a treatment in a certain hospital, such as religious hospital. And we believe if those kind of abortion is forced in the religious hospital, we believe it could change the perception of the abortion itself to the society because religion is one of the major reasons why people think abortion is a really, really, really bad thing. So for that reason, I'm
진짜.
So coming from the Prime Minister, they have been recognizing a wrong problem in the status quo. The reason why they want to push this motion is because they think when the religious group are choosing their hospital, they have a preference upon their beliefs, therefore they should have all rights to go to their believable hospital they want to. But we have been telling you how, if you are really that religious and you really want to pursue that religion in the first place, you probably shouldn't have break the belief that belongs to your community. For example, we have been talking about Christians, so I will give you a Christian example. If abortion is bad in the first place within their community, we don't think the person should have made that kind of, incident in the first place. We think the wrong idea coming from this is that because you broke the religious, we think it's bad for you to force the hospital to change just simply because you really want to pursue your own right on your taste or preference. We think when the religious hospital is having their own foundation or motive based on their religious, we should protect them, and the state should not intervene to these beliefs. So the first argument was role of hospital. Madam Speaker, they have been telling us how these religious hospital aren't meeting this role of hospital. They have been failing because they don't care about patients. We don't think that's the case. Every time the hospital is providing treatments or medical, studies to these patients, they're doing their best to meet their primary goal to cure these individuals. Secondly, we think when these religious hospitals are having a foundation upon this, we think in this kind of cases abortion can be exempted. Lastly, we have been telling you how these individuals have several choices to go to instead of religious hospitals. Secondly, they talked about the right for equal treatment. We don't think it's true that all the hospital provides right treatment to the people. Firstly, when we think about it, individuals get different treatment based on their financial circumstances or status, so it's not equal in the first place. Secondly, although minimum treatment can be enforced by the government or could be equal. Secondly, all hospitals do not provide equal treatment or have a capability to provide. For example, if you go to a small hospital, they encourage you to go to a bigger hospital for a better treatment. We think there is a differences in all hospitals, and in this case, that differences come from these religious bases. Later. And Nara talked about how these patients have the right to choose their own hospital based on their taste. We don't think that's the case. Like in health issues especially, people are not choosing the hospital based on their religious beliefs itself. It's not a priority. Your priority is probably which kind of hospital is providing the best brain surgery, or how much do I have to really cover my medical treatment, or which hospital is nearer for me, or how much income status I have. So we don't think this is the main reason why we have to pass this motion and allow them.
On that.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, in Philippines, over 90% of the top hospitals that provide good health care are affiliated with the Catholic Church. Similarly, in many neighborhoods, you cannot go to a secular hospital because majority of the good hospitals are religiously affiliated. How can they ever get an abortion?
We think, especially in those cases, government probably should have a special action for these individuals and have strict scrutiny upon these kind of cases where especially this kind of abortion is exempted. Not that government has to force all religious hospitals to just provide all abortion, because this itself is infringing upon the basic religious freedom these hospitals may have. We don't think this is generally applicable. We don't think this is generally applicable. And in those special cases that should be exempted through strict scrutiny, that's what we are standing for. They have been telling us how this is not intervening at all to the religious right. Our leader of opposition has been telling you how this is really infringing upon the freedom of choice of this religious group, because in the first place, probably this hospital was founded based on their religious backgrounds or knowledges or their motives. When we are forcing these individuals to go against their belief and just provide the practice simply because government tell you to do so, we think this is going against their, firstly, we are trying to limit their right for practicing their belief. Secondly, they're also limiting how this message can be sent to the public. For example, if you force these religious hospitals to provide abortion itself, it is sending a message that these hospitals are not really going for not supporting the abortion. We think in 3 freedom of choice, freedom of religion, 2 categories are infringed. How you have the right to tell, or freedom of to tell what you believe, and how you have the right or freedom to practice your belief. So in this case, we clearly told you how this is going against the establishment and exercise. Furthermore, we have been telling you how there are stakeholders that will be impacted. Now, I would like to bring to you how this negatively impacts the society when this is passed. For example, these religious hospitals who had their own motive to have a establishment will fail to differentiate themselves from other hospitals, right? So the reason why we have been having a character of religious hospital is maybe because we want to pursue something that we have been believing. But when we force these hospitals to be just like other hospitals, these religious hospitals won't be able to differentiate their other values. So other doctrines can't be other doctrines that these hospitals value will be weakened. Furthermore, this kind of weakened differentiation of this religious hospital will impact themselves. Firstly, because the patients won't prefer this religious hospital over others because they're not differentiated. Furthermore, like how religious group won't care about, will be furious to support this changes. Lastly, we think the government will have a bigger hand to really not care about further doctrines. They will have another excuses or reasons to infringe upon another stance or beliefs that this religious hospital may want to protect in the future. So in a bigger case, we think this is not simply about abortion, but furthermore infringing upon the right to protect their own religious picture. Therefore, we are proud to oppose.
Thank you for the space. Now I'd like to the last speaker from the house.
라이브예요?
프라이 스피치를 하자고요? 할까요, 교수님? 안돼. 뭐요?
AP에서
시간이 너무 없어요.
교수님 그건 좀 아닌 것 같아. 나 지금
야야, 우리 살려줘.
모든 걸 살리거라.
잠깐 뭐였지? 아이고, 자. We as the government side actually concedes the religious freedom of individuals. However, when it comes to practical level, which is performing medical treatment, we actually do not agree with the opposition side saying that religious values should be based on the medical issues. However, we do not agree with that statement, and I'm going to furthermore prove on my arguments. So this debate was about whether the government admits religious freedom in performing medical treatment. However, medical treatment should be fairly distributed, no matter that person is Christian or Buddhist. Why is that so? Because health is something that very critical in one individual's life, and it's a very important part of individual life. And it's not 1 minute. I was able to answer 3 questions in this debate. Firstly, so when it comes to medical level, whether the government should value religious values over individual value, so we think that individual's value should be weighted higher than religious freedom in the medical level. And secondly, why specifically health organization, we should intervene in the health organization while we are not really care about other organizations like churches. And thirdly, I'm gonna answer how how the independent of the each hospital. Certainly I'm gonna answer about like independency of each hospitals. But before moving on to my classes, I'd like to rebut several cases coming from opposition side. So firstly, they talked about how why not go to other non-religious hospitals. So we have to actually consider in this debate that actually majority numbers of hospitals were based on religious freedom, religious foundation, right? So if you go to any hospital, they actually have a very big 문패 on the hospital, right? So like we are doing our best based on our Christianity or whatever. So like Red Cross or Yonsei or Seoul National like hospital, they all are based on Christianity or other religious values. So at the first place, for the patient, it is hard for them to find other hospital. Secondly,
On that.
yes.
Shouldn't it be the burden of the government to establish enough secular hospitals as opposed to pushing that burden from the
Yes.
government to these religious
So secondly, coming to stakeholder analysis, we believe some patients with the strong religious beliefs, they actually chose certain hospital to go to because a hospital is something requires very high credibility for the patients. So like you choose same milk when you go to market, right? It's like they go to the same hospital. So they go to the same hospital because they know that hospital has a lot of something they have give a credibility to that hospital. So actually, some strong religious believer go to a certain hospital because they believe that this hospital performs the best treatment in the area. So second rebuttals. So they also Harakama said that like they already broke their like religious belief at the first place. However, there is very religious point of view in this debate. So the government do not care about how the individuals actually fail to believe in his religious belief. He just cares about equally well distributed medical treatment. And yes, and
Before you move on.
no, I run out of time now. Firstly, so first question I come up with was whether when it comes to medical field, does the government should value higher individual value than religious value? So as I said, medical is something that very critical and essential in individuals' lives. So let's suppose that the government start admitting their religious right in the first place. Then what about some religious organization actually define AIDS as an evil diseases, and how Bible and some religions define some of the diseases and stigmatize those diseases as a very untreatable or as something that God denied to treat. But if we started admitting that abortion is something against religious belief, then the government should start after that. The government should start once the government should acknowledging those religious beliefs. Then we should not treat AIDS in the first place. We should not treat even any other disease that a religious organization define as a very evil disease. And so we believe medical science should be separate from the religions, and that's the thing that yes.
You said you said visiting hospital is based on the credits, right? Would you rather go to a religious hospital that's very dirty but you're Christian, or a hospital that is very good at performance?
As I said, most majority like good hospital in Seoul, they're all based on religious belief like Christianity. So I clearly told you that it is hard for them to find good and qualified religions because they are all based on religious belief at the first place. So second question I came up with in this debate. So why only health organization the government should intervene at the why we do not actually say anything about churches? So we are saying that actually when it comes to practical level, like when I think we are talking about how churches actually providing healthcare for the individuals. However, okay, it's fine that churches providing medical treatment to individuals. However, we believe when it comes to something that related to people's life, we believe their values or their beliefs should be separated in the profession of it. So the doctor which is Christianity, do not actually reject patient who are Buddhist, right? Because when it comes to professional level, everyone should be. Everyone should be equally treated because medical is something that they're very critical in individuals' lives, and that's why the government actually intervened in the health organization in the first place. So thirdly, why independency of each hospital should not be considered in this debate. So in the status quo, we are talking about we might talk about like Al-Aqsa, right? Some countries actually admits Al-Aqsa. However, we can see that even in some countries which admits Al-Aqsa, some hospitals actually reject to perform this treatment. But as the government, we don't like this thing to happen in status quo because too risky. No. Too strict content.
Here.
Yeah, so we actually consider the fact that if that hospital is not capable of doing certain treatment like brain surgery because it's too risky and requires specialization, we actually admit that. However, we can't stand that if they have just because they have a certain religious belief and if they reject certain treatments, we actually don't like that to be happen. Why is that so? Because if it's gonna prevent certain hospital to be actually capable of doing further treatment in the future, because the hospitals with a religious belief are gonna say because it's what God said and we are not gonna actually provide it. But that's actually gonna prevent those hospitals. 8분입니다 지금.
팔팔이다는 뭐야? 진짜.
어디부터 잘라야 돼? 그냥 안락사 얘기할 때 이미 침 붙이는
Madam Speaker, I'm so disappointed in this debate. Everybody's are swimming in different sea right now. So I want to raise two questions. How can you not infringing rights when you're forcing the action, and if you're forcing if you're forcing them to provide the abortion to the hospitals? And is it really for the patients who already choose to go to this hospital, not that hospital? I would like to elaborate later. Before I move on, there as we keep emphasizing, they're saying that's inequality that our hospitals not providing the abortion, but it's not inequality at all, since there's another hospitals as well, and in liberal democracy, everybody's have freedom to go another hospitals and get another, if they really want to get abortions, they can just go there to get that treatment if they really want to. And we already said hospitals' credibility is based on performance, not on the religious value. And as he said, as Tejo said, if euthanasia, which is An-Laksa, if hospital has right to choose whether they have to provide euthanasia or not, also the religious hospital has also the right to choose a certain treatment, such as abortion or not, because we have freedom to choose to provide this treatment. And the clashes I found is like, is it hospital's burden to commit the abortion? No, they cannot provide. we cannot have this capability all of a sudden, and it's already, as I said, there's another hospitals as well. And does government have right to infringe religion's stance? No, they don't have the right. It will cause, social chaos, and if we degrade the religious group to, and it's completely ignoring their ideas, and I'll elaborate more. And also, what's the factor the individuals choose when they go to hospital? It's not based on the, of course there's religious, but over than that, if they really want to alive, and if they really want to, get better mental treatment, they also will go to, abortion. Yes.
How can you actually satisfy or respect individual freedom of religion if you allow hospitals that are religious to hold patients hostage to their own religious beliefs, i.e., unless they hold the belief of the religious hospital, they will not get treated? How is that ever okay?
Would you tell me again?
Okay. So you're going against religious freedom of individuals because you're allowing religious hospitals to make them believe what they feel is right, or else they don't get treatment.
Well, it's quite inevitable if they really want to get the abortion. Well, if they choose to believe this specific religion, they are not, at the first place, they will not really want to get abortion at the first place. They will just say, I believe in this God, and if this God say me to not get abortion, I will not do it. Or, it's already, against the doctrine. And our arguments was like, this motion is totally infringing the religion's right. And, okay. According to your cases, if a Christian baby, a real Christian was raped, and because of her religion, she was not able to have abortion, wouldn't it be a relief for her if the religious hospital allows abortion?
Yeah.
Okay. But if the religious doctrine does not saying that they can commit the abortion, that it's just not true that this specific religious let them to do, right? It's if this God saying like don't do the abortion, it's of course they will be relieved, but it's against the doctrine. So going back, so this totally infringes the religious rights. In establishment level, government should not infringe their right, whereas they have already have right to choose what they want to believe, and believers would feel like it's so inconsistent, and we're feeling very confused because where our doctrine saying it is okay, whereas the government is forcing them to do opposite thing, they would feel totally confusing, and they will be like, where should I go and where am I, right? And in exercise level, and they're not even stopping, or like they're forcing the opposite case of what they have been believed, and again it will be totally chaos. And for the doctors who are main conductors, who commit the surgery, when they choose this religious hospital to commit this surgery, to be there, they would get impact as well, and they would just, if they choose, just, doctors and patients and everybody who choose to be in this religious hospital will feel like this was differentiated because it has this religion, then what if government forcing them to do what they are not have been doing, they will feel this is not what I have been, and they will all go away, and this hospital's function will not available from then on. And for the religious group, the majority of the again, they will just go away from the hospital, and also people who are interested in this hospitals and have been investing on will if the reason why they have been invested on was the religion, they would lose it, and the religion has no stance to be there. And if you suddenly allow them to do this kind of actions, which was opposite the doctrine, just like slippery slope, they will allow another thing, and they would no barrier between the religions and their beliefs, and there would be no regulations, and individuals are be very confused. For these reasons, I'm proud to.
Okay, feedback. While they're looking at their notes, I'll go over this debate a little bit, while not necessarily adjudicating it, leaving it up for the two of them. Okay, so I wrote those things on the board for you to think about for the purposes of this debate. So rights versus state interest. Rights, I think simplistically you could think of this as rights of the religious hospitals to exercise their belief, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? And I tried to illustrate that with my current information. Religious organizations don't necessarily have the freedom to exercise religion because they're not an individual, right? Religious rights actually comes down to individuals as well. So of course you can extend the establishment or the people who established the religious hospital as their religious belief or freedom to exercise their belief. But you can turn it around the other way as well by saying, actually, if religious hospitals are not providing abortion, then they are instituting their religious belief upon others who are their healthcare providees, right? People who are getting service from them, right? In that case, isn't the government actually providing too much power onto a religion, violating the Establishment Clause, making it so that others have to, based on the services that are provided by the hospital, to accept that belief or else suffer bad consequences? Isn't that discrimination being practiced by these religious hospitals, right? And if you're endorsing these discriminatory actions based on religion, isn't that a violation of Establishment Clause? Is something that you can keep in mind. Okay? Isn't that a violation of freedom to exercise religion for individuals if the government allows them to do so? Okay, so you can see it on that level. Second level, of course, freedom of hospitals to exercise these religious rights for the establishers. Thing that you would want to try to think about and differentiate from the government side is hospitals or doctors who are treating these individuals are different from normal individuals. Why? Because they perform a specific special service that is limited in quantity and availability, right? And I think that's sort of what you guys needed to come out with the outset. Even if, as the opposition says, there are many, many choices that could be made, if, for example, half of the hospitals are Christian that do not provide abortion, and the other half do provide abortion, then based on your religious belief, your choice or freedom to choose a hospital is cut in half, right? Isn't that not necessarily a good thing, right? You can even make it analogous to schools as well. For example, you may have schools in your area. Of course, you can choose to go to a non-Christian school if you don't want to go to chapel services. But at the same time, doesn't that cut your choices by that amount? Okay? And isn't that discrimination against your own religious beliefs or non-religious belief, whatever it may be? Okay? So therefore, if it is an organization that provides valuable public service, essential public service like medicine, then you might say they don't have that luxury or freedom to exercise their own religious belief because they are a service provider. In essence, they are an extension of the government, right? Because they're providing services that the government should be providing. I raise in the POI for the other side, isn't it the burden of the government to provide secular hospitals that provide services then? That may be so, but you may also argue that the government has allowed for these religious institutions, oftentimes with government funding, or at least with government tax exemptions, to operate because they are providing services, public services, that the government endorses, right? Therefore, they're not entirely private institutions. Religious churches, it might be different, right? You wouldn't force churches to accept people that they don't want to accept, but at the same time, religious hospitals, they are firstly hospitals, secondly religious. Therefore, as their first responsibility, they must accept everyone and provide all services that they are capable of. Okay, that might be where you wanted to argue in the rights perspective. Back and forth. State interests. Here in this area, you're pretty much pushing the value or necessity to provide abortion, right? And if you push, how serious and interest it is for the government to provide abortion, then I think that would be sort of the argument in that area. I don't think that was really quite done by, especially the government side, which you should have. Strict scrutiny versus general applicability. I heard the language, but I don't think it was analyzed properly. DLO, right? So you raised this language, but I don't think you analyzed it properly, right? So general applicability meaning that you're wanting all hospitals, including religious hospitals, to provide abortion on this side, right? On your side, the way to arrange strict scrutiny argumentation is, yes, we understand that hospitals in general, it's good for them to provide abortion. However, it is the government's responsibility to respect the religious views of these religious organizations, hospitals, so that their views are not violated against if government interests could be protected. So, for example, you might say in terms of these religious hospitals, rather than providing abortion, you might force them to provide other services to a greater extent, right? Or you might say, yes, these religious hospitals sacrifice a portion of the government funding because they're not providing this, right? Or you might say the government provides additional funding to organizations or hospitals that provide abortion, where this benefit is being voided for religious hospitals and so on. So you can try to find some sort of another alternative other than forcing religious hospitals to do what they do not want, right? Since these alternatives are available, using the strict scrutiny test, we say that forcing them is not justifiable. Okay, so that would be the strict scrutiny. See if you can find an alternative that is the least restrictive means, since this is clearly not the least restrictive means. So that's the analysis that we would be trying to make. Impacts on stakeholders. So we'd be looking at probably the mothers, right? The patients, pretty much. You could be looking at religious organizations. You can be looking at hospitals, right? So these are all stakeholders. So impact on the mothers or the patients, okay? You could talk about the lesser availability of choice, okay, or lesser availability of good services being able to be provided. Impact on religious organizations. So once again, for the patients, you can talk about the slippery slope argument that I think Tejo brought up. It was interesting. If we allow religious organizations to do this, then who's to say that religious organizations will stop treating patients based on other religious reasons as well, right? So if you have AIDS because you had premarital sex or unprotected sex, that's not allowed by the church, then you might say they won't treat that, okay, and so on. I thought that was a good example, actually, that could have been built better. So that's another impact. On the other side, I think Yuan, it wasn't quite as clearly brought out, but at the same time, you're talking about slippery slope argument on restriction on religions as well, right? You don't want to just use the term slippery slope. You really want to illustrate how that will occur, as opposed to saying you think it'll get worse and worse. How will it exactly get worse? I thought Tejo provided that in his comparison to AIDS, although it could have been even more. Impact on hospitals. Okay, we can talk about what kind of an impact this would have. I don't know, maybe religious hospitals, it's not just organizations, it's also formed of individuals with religious beliefs as well. If you force them to do so, will they really be able to provide good service because they're going against their own conscience? Will the doctors decide to leave these hospitals if they force them to do so? Will that lead to worse service and so on, right? So you can talk about various impacts on stakeholders, right? I do think some of the ideas came out, but I don't think it was analyzed at a sophisticated, in-depth level. If you are following some of the analysis that I was trying to cover in my lecture, and I'm trying to contextualize to this debate, then I think your argumentation could sound a lot better, a lot more sophisticated. Okay. All right. Jisoo and Minjung. So chair, who won? You you were acting as chair. Go on. Governments. Okay. Jisoo, who wins? Gov. Okay. Right. Jisoo can provide feedback first. Breaking adjudicator at the last case.
I thought that overall, the government side was talking about because the role of the hospital is really important, rather to follow the religious belief, it is more important to have the obligation as a doctor to treat the patients well and provide a well treatment. I thought that it was a very simple and basic arguments that brought up firstly from the Prime Minister. However, I thought that it was further developed by end of Taejo's speech. He was talking about how the religious dislike diseases can affect on the person's life and how it can be impact on their life as well. So I thought their consistency overall, their whole side arguments stands as it goes later on. And I thought that the opposition side, their arguments is kind of squeaky. It was kind of, the consistency throughout the debate was kind of squeaky, was squashy, because I thought that
Squeaky squashy. Wishy-washy.
the LO speech, although she didn't quite had a organizing arguments, I thought that she was quite questioning that what is the bar between the religion and states in terms of the intervention. And I thought, although she provided some arguments the doctors, it is a violating their rights of the doctors that giving the choice of activating abortions. And she was also talking about it is a takeaway of the power from the religious hospitals, which is limiting the religious activity. I thought that argument was strong enough, but then I thought it would be better if she provided some policy or other policy or alternative choices that you guys can make. So I thought if she further move on, she will have because it's a principal argument. So I thought she can build another the cases with that. And when it comes to when it comes to further down, I like the Hara's arguments about fail to differentiate with others, but I think it's kind of minor arguments, because the fact that the hospital that differentiate themselves is because they want to have a donors or they want to have money from the other institutions or to survive themselves. But I thought it's not, the failure to differentiate is not a matter of the hospital itself. It's what I try to say is the fail to even though they are trying to differentiate themselves, it is not hospitals due to differentiate themselves, because their obligation itself at the first place is to cure the people and provide the well treatment. So I thought even if it is needed, it is not the main issues that we are arguing in this round. And yes.
Feedback. Okay, right. I think I would probably tend to agree. Although it wasn't, having not flown the debate, I think I could probably justify a win for the opposition just as well. I do feel that a lot of the clarity as well as the stronger arguments ended up coming quite late for the government side, and even if that is given full credit, I'm not quite sure if that was enough, right? I do feel that I think the opposition was able to show at least some level of alternatives that were available that patients could go to. And secondly, I do feel that while the argumentation for differentiation wasn't that strong, you could argue that that is a portion of religious expression as well. So while I would agree that that's not necessarily the most significant argument when we're talking about hospitals, I don't think it's an argument that should be disregarded altogether either. Okay. Right. Like I said, I think the debate could have been characterized a lot better by both of the sides to make it fit more along the lines of hospitals on one hand and the state interest of abortion in the other. I think I like the qualifier of the states where abortion is legal, and that ended up including a lot of the extraneous portions of is abortion good or bad. So that's although the government side should have talked about why abortion is state interest more, but not the discussion.